Okay, I forgot. Before we actually get into the limitations, we do still have to deploy this web client, and we're going to do that in this lesson. But before I do, there's a couple corrections I have to make. Well, one quick correction. If you try to run within your YouTube client directory, if you try to run npm run build, you're going to get an error. And basically, I'll tell you what that error is, like fast forwarding. When you loop through elements and you're rendering multiple elements, you have to uniquely identify each of them, and you have to do so with a key. So in this case, we're looping and creating links that are wrapped around images. So we have to add a key to the outer element, which we can set it to be unique. I mean, we could use like an index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but a better way to do it is to just take the video ID, because we know that's definitely going to be unique. So that's the best solution in this case. And let's see if we got that build error. Yeah, so basically it was saying the missing key prop was for this element, but we added that key. So now we're good to go on that front. And there's another subtle error, and this is actually not really a bug, but it's kind of the default behavior of Next.js, which is that on the server side, it's going to cache every request, including the requests that are made with our Firebase function call, including this get videos call. And there's a way, typically with HTTP requests, like this fetch request here, we could specify cache property, and then here we could say no cache, and then it would not cache this request. I think in our case, we're only executing this client side, so it doesn't make a difference. But for this one, we're executing this, of course, in the server-side rendered component. So is there a way we can pass in no cache to this? No, there's actually not. We can't with Firebase functions. We can't specify that. So the best solution we have with Next.js 13 is to basically on this entire page, disable caching altogether. And the best way to do that would be to set export const, revalidate, and set it to 0. And by the way, I'm getting this from the documentation, which I will link to you below. And this is actually kind of an unpopular feature of Next.js 13 in the app directory. By the way, this revalidate basically will be like the time period in seconds that we are going to refetch all these requests. And in our case, do we really need to refetch this? Do we need to make this API call every single time this page is rendered? Because it's going to be rendered the same for every single user. So maybe we don't have to revalidate it every single time. Maybe we can add like a 30-second delay, which means like every 30 seconds, it's going to re-render this page once, and then it's going to cache the page and then send that cached copy to the users. In this way, we will reduce the load on this get videos endpoint. So that's good. You might be wondering, what would happen if we didn't disable caching altogether? What would be the issue? Well, basically, after we would upload a video, after we deployed this app and then we upload a video, it would not show the newly uploaded video to the site because it would cache this request. And let's say we had 3 videos, those 3 videos would be cached by this guy. And then if we added a 4th video, it wouldn't matter because it's just going to keep serving us those same 3 videos, even if we add more. So that's kind of the behavior we're trying to fix. And we do so with this line of code. You export it at the bottom. That's kind of what the documentation said to do. Okay, so now we're ready to deploy this, and the way I'm going to do it is again with Docker. So this will be our second Docker file. I'm not going to create it in the app directory. We usually create it in like the project level directory. So first I'm actually going to create a Docker ignore, which is going to be the same as last time. We'll just ignore the node modules folder, and we could probably ignore a bunch of other stuff here as well, like the next directory. Actually, I'm not 100% sure about the next directory with the way the builds work here. We'll create a Docker file as well. So here we'll say Docker file. And I'm going to copy and paste the code, but I'll go over every single line. It's going to be pretty similar to the first one that we wrote, where we are going to have 2 steps here. One is to actually just build the project. So just like how I ran npm run build a second ago, that's what this step is all about. We're going to create a working directory. That's a pretty standard step, and it's going to be called app. I think that's the same as we did last time. We're going to copy the package.json files, run npm install to add all the dependencies, because of course we need the dependencies before we build the code. We're going to copy the source files as well, so everything in this directory. That's why we added the Docker file at this level. We didn't add it in the app directory. We added it outside of it. And then we're going to run npm run build once we have all the source files we need. And then we're going to use the output of this build in the second step, but we're not using anything else in the second step. We're not using the installs. We're not using the package files. All we're using is the result of that build. That's why the second step is necessary, and that's why the second step will reduce the size of the image. So once again, we're starting with node 18, creating a working directory, copying the package files, installing only the production dependencies needed, and copying the result from the builder stage. That's what this is from. That's why we're specifying builder here. That name matches over here. And we're copying everything from the next directory into our local next directory. That's where the build outputs are going to go, I guess, and that's probably specified somewhere. Actually, that's just where the build results will go. So like if we open the next directory, you'll see the files here. And if we actually ran npm run build, which I'll do in a second just to prove it to you. So let me run npm run build within the YouTube client directory. You'll see that the build files will go in the next directory. Yep, you can see, I think we added a few files here. Those are not going to be committed to like our source control though. Yep, you can see a bunch more files are being rendered. So I think previously in our video processing service, the build files went into like the dist directory. In this case, it's equivalent to like the .next directory for the purposes of like where the build files go. And I think we're also copying our images from the public directory as well, because we are going to need to serve those from the server as well. And we're exposing the port, and then we're running npm run start, which is how we can start the production build here, which will start up that next server. So that's pretty much the Docker file. And for what it's worth, I'll tell you that I never can write these up from memory. I do have to refer to the documentation, and I definitely reference the first Docker file that we wrote to get like a high level idea. And there are definitely many, many examples of people Dockerizing Next.js apps if you want to like search for them. That's how I was able to get this to work. So now that we have all that done, I'm going to first create a repository for these Docker images for this YouTube web client. And I'm going to do that in Google Cloud, just like we did earlier. So in Google Cloud Artifact Registry, we had a repo for the video processing images. Let's create one for the YouTube web client repo for the YouTube web client images. Once again, I'm going to do US Central 1 and then just go ahead and create it. Make sure it's a Docker type. That's the format. So we created it. Now it's time to actually build the image. So I'm going to copy and paste the command, but I'll link it below. And all we need to do is specify our project directory, because in this case, I'm specifying we're uploading to this repo, and this is the name of our image. And we're building from the current directory. Make sure you are in the YouTube web client, because that's where the Docker file is. So that was successful. And now we're going to push the image. And once again, I'm just going to copy and paste the command. And the only thing I'm going to update is the project directory. And that's probably the only thing you're going to have to update as well. So here we go. Okay, now that that's done, we can finally deploy our container to Cloud Run, and I'm going to do that via the CLI, but you can do that via the console if you want. Once again, the only thing you're going to have to change with this command is the project ID. So I'll paste that here and then go ahead and run this. This one should be a lot faster, and here we can say we are allowing unauthenticated invocation. So that's different from the first time that we deployed, where we wanted our service to be internal only. And after we deploy, we'll get a URL. You can also find this in the console. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it. And now we can see that our same application is deployed. But if you try to sign in, you might get an error. Like, look, it didn't even work when I tried to sign in. And when you have strange behavior like that, the best advice is to take a look at the logs in your browser's console tab. Try signing in and see what happens. We get some unauthorized error. And with a quick Google search, you'll figure out that the error is because we have to take this domain and basically whitelist it. Like in our Firebase console, when you go to the authentication tab and then go over to the settings tab, scroll all the way down and you'll see authorized domains over here. Click that and you want to add, by default, you can see it already has local hosts. That's why it was working earlier. But now we're going to also add our domain. And after doing that, it should work. And the reason for this is because we wouldn't want someone to take our credentials and be able to like use it on their own domain. And most of the time, Firebase credentials are public, so people will be able to see them. But now coming back here, let's refresh. And Now let's try to sign in, and you'll see automatically we are signed in, and then the upload button appears. So far it's working. Let's try clicking a video and see what happens. Yep, videos seem to be loading correctly. Now let's test out the upload feature, and then let's refresh to make sure that video is rendered here. So I'm going to upload. I'm uploading a short video, so it should only take a few seconds. And it looks like it was successful, and it should just take a few more seconds for it to process, and we'll know it's done processing when our database updates, and it looks like it already did, but it's currently still processing, so we'll give it a couple seconds. If we try refreshing now, it probably won't display, and that's expected because the video is still processing. That's perfectly fine, but now the video is done processing. Now let's refresh, and we see the video is here. Let's click the video. Okay, that's a bit strange. It looks like it's undefined. I wonder why that is. I wonder if it maybe fetched like the old data before we had the file name. So I'll try refreshing again, but you can kind of see that there is a little bit of rough behavior going on. Okay, let's try clicking the other videos, and they seem to be loading. So I'm wondering what's going on here. Let's open up our network tab. And actually, since that API call is being made server side, we won't know what the request was. We can't see the console output and stuff like that. The best way to see that would probably be on Cloud Run, but now that I think of it, I know why that's happening. It probably cached the request for 30 seconds. So I'll wait a few seconds and then try refreshing again. Okay, now let's try to click this, and yep, we see it does work. You can see there's a slight bug actually. I said that when the video is currently processing, the video will not show up on the home page, but actually it does show up. We never had any logic in our get videos function to filter out the videos that are still processing. So that's like a slight bug, and I'll tell you there are plenty of other limitations with this application. Even though now we finally have it deployed, we finally have it actually working, and it wasn't easy to get here. You probably learned a lot, and I'm sure you're thinking, well, there's not even thumbnails here, but with all that we've learned, I think uploading thumbnails will be relatively easy compared to the stuff that we've already accomplished. And I think that would be a very good exercise for you if you want to add additional functionality to this application, but not only that, also learn a lot as well, because you're going to learn a lot more when I'm not there to like tell you step by step what to do.